Hey everyone, Austin here again with another Let's Play video. Today we're going to be playing through Castlevania Bloodlines on the Sega Genesis. Now this is a game I've done multiple Let's Plays of, even up to just recently. I did a expert mode run with John Morris. Today we're going to be doing another expert mode run, this time with Eric Lecarde, who's our second character in this game. He has a spear, he's got some cool extra abilities that John doesn't have. He's got a few different routes he has to take through the game, so you guys get to see some different locations and whatnot. And I think the run's actually a little more challenging with him as well as a result. And so yeah, we're going to go through it again today, and that should hopefully wrap up the Castlevania Bloodlines playthroughs on this channel, unless I decide to try to tackle, you know, like the European version in the future, or the Japanese original, which was called Vampire Killer in Japan. But we'll see. I'll have to look into that. But yeah, this actually kicks off October 2018. This is the start of my horror-themed Let's Plays. So what we're going to do here is actually access expert mode. To do that, you do up, up, down, down, left, right, BA at this selection screen. And then when you go to the options menu, you can actually select expert mode. Otherwise, if you want to get to expert mode and you have to beat the game on normal mode, which obviously we're not going to do that right now. I had actually thought about doing that on a live stream, but I decided to make another Let's Play out of this instead of a live stream. So, but let's go ahead and jump in here. And before we actually start the gameplay, as usual, I'd like to give a big shout out to my current Patreon backers. So they're going to go ahead and flash right by the screen. So thank you guys for your continued direct support to this channel. Same with the live stream super chatters and channel members. Thank you guys for your direct patronage as well. It sort of keeps me going here. So let's go ahead and hit A and select Eric. And Eric is he's a pretty cool character, but I will admit I've been playing with John Morris for so long that I am not that comfortable with playing with Eric. One thing that John can do that Eric can't is John can attack diagonally in the air, which gives John actually a lot of extra reach for airborne enemies, and there are a lot of airborne enemies in this game. So I still have a hard time getting into the mindset that's required when you play as Eric. Now, one thing that is really nice if you're a big fan of, say, Super Castlevania 4 is Eric can actually attack from the ground diagonally. And vertically as well, which is definitely a throwback to my favorite Castlevania game, which is Super Castlevania 4. The only difference is that Eric is kind of slow. You know, his attack doesn't just come out immediately like that, you know, so you've got to sort of like, you've got to really anticipate where the enemies are coming from, and you've got to throw your attack out early. If you want to make it happen, and you want to make it connect without taking damage. And not taking damage on expert mode is really important in this game. I mean, every time you take a hit, I mean, multiple blocks of health are taken off. 3, 4, 5 sometimes. And it can be pretty challenging to survive. Survival is really important because we only get 2 continues. You do get limited continues on expert mode. And so I want to try to do this, you know, as easily as possible. And I'm going to actually try something here. Look at that! Look at that! Experimentation for the win. So we actually just skipped the entire bottom section with Eric. And I don't know why it never dawned on me to try that before, but Eric's got the super jump. So, you know, you get on the ground, you duck, and you press B, and you can actually get to higher areas. You'll also be invincible for a short period of time as well, which is quite nice. I don't recommend using that to kill enemies that are airborne because, you know, it's a very, very weak attack. It makes you invincible, but it doesn't do a whole lot of damage, and if you land on top of an enemy that takes more than 1 hit, you won't end up taking damage yourself. So this is our first mini-boss here. He basically spits out fire, and he howls, and the glass shatters apart, and then he sort of sits down like this after you kill him. You have to actually do one final blow to defeat him. Kind of a cool little, you know, a bit of detail there that you don't actually see too much throughout the rest of the game. So, all right, on to section 2. We're on stage 1-6 apparently, and if I, you know, had lost a little bit of health, I could regain it with this wall meat, but I don't need it right now. And so I haven't really explained the sub-weapon system in this game, but it's just like any other Castlevania game. You get a sub-weapon, and like Castlevania 4, it's got its own use button. So in classic Castlevania, like the NES games and whatnot, and Rondo of Blood and Dracula X on Super Nintendo, you would have to press up and attack in order to use your sub-weapons. And your sub-weapons would use ammunition. And the ammunition in those games were hearts. Well, in this game, the ammunition are, they consist of gems, basically. And there we go. We actually just cut right through that bat since we're invincible when we do our super jump. But yeah, no more hearts in this game. It's just gems now. And you can press the C button to use, use those sub-weapons. And then what's really cool about Bloodlines is that you can actually press up in C to use an extra sub-weapon attack, a special sub-weapon attack that does more damage. It uses up more gems, but a lot of times it's very beneficial to do so. Like, that's the alternate sub-weapon attack for the boomerang. Very, very good alternate sub-weapon attack. What's actually kind of nice about this first level, too, is it actually has 2 hidden wall meets. A lot of levels only have 1 at best. So, the first level is probably the easiest to get through on expert mode. There's also going to be an extra life up here, so we want to make sure we get that. Bam, just like that. Now, some of the extra lives are kind of tough to get in this game, but I'm going to try to get as many as I possibly can. And what I'm going to do is just kind of use my boomerang on this bone dragon here. The bone dragons are pretty erratic in this game, and on expert mode in particular, they're pretty difficult to deal with. Pretty risky to deal with, so if you can take them out from a distance, that's the best way to go. But regarding the sub-weapons, what I wanted to mention is that after you reach a certain gem threshold, usually I don't remember the exact number, it feels like it's around 35. Once you do that, occasionally like a super sub weapon will drop, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna actually grind out for that. We've got full health and we've got, more than enough gems in order to do so. So we're gonna keep doing that, and I think it's gonna drop, and our main weapon catches on fire. It becomes a lot more powerful. And then we get our super sub weapon. With John, it's this sort of homing attack that just locks on the enemies, and it does some good damage, but it only hits really one enemy at a time. Whereas with Eric, he does this screen clearing sort of, firebomb kind of attack, which just does a ton of damage, and again, it clears out pretty much the whole screen. And this is also a trick, there we go, we got it. This is also a trick you can do many times throughout the game, especially on Dracula's final stage, where you can, if there's a staircase, if you go back up or down that staircase, all the candles will reappear. And that was something that happened in other Castlevania games too. It's not just this one, but it's a really good trick to know. I mean, you can do it in the first Castlevania, you can do it in Castlevania 3, you can do it in Dracula X. So this first boss here is actually pretty easy, and he's actually not doing a whole lot right now, which is kind of funny, because usually on expert mode the bosses are a little more aggressive, but this guy really isn't doing a whole lot. He can run and dash at you. He's got this sort of poke attack with his spear, which can either be an overhead attack, which you can duck, or it'll be an underhand attack, which you have to actually step away from, otherwise you'll take a hit. And, that first boss is actually one of my favorite bosses in the game, because, for one, he's not too tough to deal with, but he does have a lot of randomness to his attack patterns, whereas a lot of other bosses in this game are actually quite predictable. So the first boss actually ends up being one of the most random in the game, which is nice. And let's go ahead and skip through that. So, stage 2, we're at Greece now, and this is a really nice stage with, lots of variation in its stage design and whatnot, with the, different background effects and things like that. Something else I wanted to mention is that with Eric, ducking and attacking is actually a little bit better than standing and attacking, because if you hold out your attack in this game, kind of like I mentioned in the John playthrough, is you'll actually do an extra hit, and you can do that while you're ducking as well. But the thing about ducking and attacking is that you actually attack faster when you're ducking with Eric. So you can actually attack quicker when you duck and attack with Eric. And since I've got my super sub weapon here, I don't even know what the actual name is for it. I'm just going to call it a super sub weapon for this whole playthrough. I'm going to be trying to clear out some of these enemies, as quickly as possible. Like these floating ghost-looking things, they can be kind of tricky to deal with. They have a tendency of just just sort of like appearing out of nowhere, and you'll just bump right into them, unfortunately. This water as well, you can actually touch the water, but you can't go too far below the water, otherwise you'll actually start taking damage, and we don't want that to happen. Survival is my main concern here, because if possible, yeah, see, look at that, he just came right from the top of the screen and almost bumped right into me. So I need to be careful about that. And one of the big reasons I don't want them to bump into me is because when you take a hit, when your main weapon and sub-weapons are upgraded, you lose them. And I don't want to lose them because they're fantastic. They do a lot more damage to enemies and bosses. And the super sub-weapon with Eric here is just too good. Like, you really don't want to lose it if you can. On expert mode, specifically. If you're playing normal mode, maybe it's not as big of a deal. But expert mode, yeah, you really don't want to lose them. I mean, just look at that. And here is the next set of bosses. So Castlevania Bloodlines, more so than any other Castlevania game, is very much a boss rush. And I have no problems with that. I like the boss fights in this game. They're very fun. They're not too complex, but they all have their own unique patterns that you have to follow. So you do still have to learn the patterns and play to those patterns if you're going to survive. And let's try to not lose this sub-weapon because, for one, this sub-weapon will actually help us out a ton on the next couple of sections, but it'll also let us just annihilate this second level boss. And there are going to be a bunch of Medusa heads here as well, so let's try to not get hit by those guys. Medusa heads are the bane of many people's existences when it comes to Castlevania, the series as a whole. But the thing about the Medusa heads is they're really not that tough to deal with in this game. Really, you just want to take your time. You just need to look at the pattern and then just attack as they sort of line up with where your attack will be. And one of the key things here is just not jumping around like an idiot. Just sit in place, wait for the Medusa heads to appear, and then attack accordingly, just like this. Whenever I die on this section, it's usually because I'm just jumping around like crazy for no reason. I have no reason to be. It's just that, you know, when I play a lot of video games, especially old school video games that have auto-scrolling sections like this, I have a tendency, I have an ADD kind of tendency start to kick in when I play these games. And I just start jumping all over the place. I like pressing the buttons, and I like sort of like lining myself up with objects below, and then just jumping back and forth, seeing if I don't touch them, and whatnot. And that'll get me killed. So, and I'm sure a lot of you guys out there also do the same thing. I've seen a lot of other folks do that too. And it's just a habit I get into, but the thing is, it's not a good habit to be in if you're trying to play for survival. And there's also going to be another bone dragon here. Let's just go ahead and use our special. Bam, just like that. So these guys right here, you want to try to attack them while they're actually attacking. If you don't, then, you know, they'll take multiple hits to kill. And unfortunately, we lost our attack. That sucks. That's really bad. I mean, it's not really that bad because this boss fight isn't really that difficult, and we got some wall meat right here. But I wanted to show off how easy it is with the special sub-weapon. And this guy right here can be a little tricky as well, so what's nice to have is the axe if you can. And so what we're going to do is, can I despawn him? Let's see. Yeah, I can. So I basically jumped early and landed right on the edge of that platform in order to attack that guy. So one other thing to note with Eric is that with these bone pillars here, he's actually, if you duck and attack them, you'll actually hit both the bottom ones and their projectiles. With John, you can hit, I think you can still hit both the bottom ones, but you won't hit both their projectiles. And so it's very dangerous with John to attack those guys. This is the axe. We're going to go ahead and just use the axe on this part. And let's see if we can kill these guys. And let's go ahead and just jump up. So this is one of the nice things about Eric is that, you know, you've got the super jump. So you can get out of harm's way pretty quickly if you want. And actually, if I really, really wanted to, we can go back up and then go back down. And then there goes the water again. And we could actually try to upgrade our sub-weapon again to make life a little bit easier here. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Now, I don't know if a blue gem is required to upgrade your sub-weapons further, but we're going to go ahead and just grind out here. I almost feel like it's like you have to not take a hit, and then after a certain amount of gems after that, as long as you met a certain gem threshold, it'll give it to you. See, there we go. We got it. Yeah, and that wasn't a blue gem drop either. There aren't any blue gem drops here, actually. So let's go ahead and get these. So this is a really nice tactic. If you don't mind taking your time, this is the way to go. If you get to a section like that, just grind out. And we're just going to keep using our special sub-weapon here. So not only are we doing damage to his pillar, which gets destroyed and then he lowers down, but we're also doing damage to his head, which is how you actually hurt him. And look at that! We didn't even get down to the boss fight itself, and we killed the guy. So great tactic there, just, you know, grinding out on gems, getting our super sub-weapon, and then just plowing through the bosses like that. So we're going to try to do that for the rest of the playthrough, if we can. We can't do that at every section, though, so... but we'll try to do it where we can. Where it allows. Actually, I think the only place for the rest of the game that we can do that is Dracula's Castle. Otherwise, we have to do it earlier on in the level, and not right before the boss fight. Yeah, the problem with doing that, like in the middle of the level itself, is you still risk, you know, taking hits, but that's okay. So good run so far. I haven't died yet, and I'm pretty happy with that. I actually did multiple practice runs of this game and just got wrecked. So I made two mistakes there. For one, I jumped right into that weapon candle. And so it ended up dropping an axe on top of me, which I didn't want to get. But in my practice sessions, I did find out that if you still have your special sub-weapon, you can actually get the special sub-weapon back just by picking up the exact same weapon again. So if I had an axe and I picked up another axe, it would automatically turn into my special sub-weapon. And we're basically just going to take these guys out from a distance. I find that attacking some guys head-on like that with Eric is a little bit tricky. And right here what I'm going to do is just jump, and I'm going to take out this peeping eye, and I'm going to sit right here. The reason I wanted to sit right here and do that, otherwise I trigger these bone pillars, and I just want to jump up like this and just get past them. And there's a blue gem there. The blue gems give you 5 gems, so those are actually really good to know about. Every other gem just gives you 1. So that's actually a different route than what I take with John. With John, I run all the way over to the right, and I grab myself an invincibility power-up, which makes you invincible for a short period of time. And what we're going to do is just jump up here, and I really want to just really focus on taking these guys out. They're really dangerous. They gang up on you. And actually, I wanted to actually talk about something. This wall on the left here, you'll notice that it's got some cracks in it. You can't destroy it, and I found that if I touch it, the game glitches out and Eric gets stuck in the wall, and then enemies come in and they gang up on you and you die. So that was really interesting. I'm gonna have to do like a quick video on that afterwards, just to show people. Oops, that was bad. But you can actually sit here in the corner with Eric, which is nice. Oops. Yeah, I'm totally messing up this strategy. Problem is, this bone dragging just gets kind of crazy. But in one of my practice runs too, he just kind of sat back, and I just sat and attacked diagonally to kill him. So that was kind of a shame. I actually ended up losing a lot of health there. But fortunately, these next couple of sections aren't that hard. Neither is the boss fight coming up. So I think we'll still be fine. And there we go, we got our super sub-weapon again. There's also an extra life here on the right, which I actually didn't know about in my previous playthroughs of this game, so... let's go ahead and jump... Where is it? Just waiting for it. Right there, that's the extra life. So we've got 5 lives now, so I'm feeling pretty good about this run so far, which is nice. I was not feeling pretty good in multiple practice sessions I did. I was really, really drowsy today. I took some Z-Quil like a day and a half ago, and I've been drowsy for the last last day and a half. I don't recommend that stuff unless you absolutely have to sleep, because for me it wrecks my next couple of days, unfortunately, which it absolutely did. But for me, I had to get this Let's Play done, and I just was not in the right mindset to do it. So we're going to go ahead and just use our sub-weapon here to clear out some of these enemies. So this sub-weapon uses up something like, you know, 7 or 8 gems. So it's a lot, but again, you clear the entire screen, so, you know, it's worth it. Now, unfortunately, this part will be a little tricky because I don't have any sub-weapons. Or I don't have any normal sub-weapons. And what happens is these guys will drop a sub-weapon or a gem right on top of you. And right here, if I really wanted to, I could just do a super jump. And we're almost at the boss fight, actually, so we're getting really, really close. See, that was a boomerang. I did not want a boomerang, unfortunately. But I do want some gems, because these, you know, these special sub-weapons are expensive. So what these guys do is they loop around once, and then they sort of dive bomb you. So they're actually not that hard to deal with, as long as you know, you focus on them. It's when you don't focus on them and you lose sight of their patterns. So there's the full loop, and whoa, that was weird. That was actually really weird. He wasn't supposed to loop back around like that. Like, he went all the way around and then went, like, you know, quarter clockwise again. Let's just use our sub-weapon there. I just want to make sure I take this weapon into the boss fight, and we should be able to. There we go. Very good. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't look like you can exit and just grind out for gems here. But that's fine. So you can actually attack this guy once, like that, and then like that. And then what I do is I'll sit down like that and attack him. And then we'll go ahead and just use our sub-weapon. So bam. This is one of the ways that, like, certain parts of the game are easier with Eric. Because he's just got some really awesome reach. And with John, you can get that reach, but it's a little bit harder to do so because you have to jump into the air. It's definitely a little more risky. But again, with Eric, some parts are more difficult. You know, John's got that added reach when he's in the air. So John can actually reach a little bit higher overall than Eric can. Eric has to be on the ground when he reaches up. He can still reach up very, very high, which makes, you know, certain boss fights a bit of a cakewalk. But with John, you know, he can actually get a little bit higher, and John has the benefit of being able to sort of like move his attack in a specific direction. So Eric is just stuck in place when he attacks vertically, whereas John could be moving forward or backwards, you know, with his air diagonal attack, which is very, very handy. So we're at stage 4. This is where usually my run with Eric starts falling apart, if it does start falling apart, because there's just a lot going on this stage, and we'll just kind of see how this goes. So, but since we've got our special sub-weapon here, we are going to take advantage of it. And we've got a lot of skeletons in the background that like to throw bones out at us. And you know one thing I just noticed, and I don't know why I've never noticed this before, but these specialized candles, they don't denote whether there's a sub-weapon in them or not. And that's really interesting. I don't know why I've never picked up on that before, but... So, one of the unique things about Castlevania Bloodlines is that, and this is the first game in the series to do this, is sub-weapon candles are now actually denoted by a different sprite, which is quite nice. In classic Castlevania games, like, you didn't know where the sub-weapons were going to be unless you've played the game a lot before, and you'd have to basically memorize the sub-weapon locations if you didn't want to pick up something by accident. So we've actually also lost our special sub-weapon, but what's kind of cool about it is, again, if you pick up the same weapon that you already have, and you have enough ammo for that special sub-weapon, you will, you'll get it back. So right there is a boomerang, bam, so we got our special sub-weapon back, and I'm just going to skip this guy like I always do. You can just look down at the bottom of the screen, watch out for his spinning weapon, and then just time it to where you just jump past it. once it's wound back up. So let's go ahead and try to just attack these guys from the bottom. And we'll just jump up here. Go ahead and use our sub-weapon. Oops, and we just lost it. So that's a shame. But at least we've got our boomerang now. The boomerang's actually quite handy on this level, so I'm actually okay with that, to be honest with you. So now we can actually take things relatively safe here. If you were playing with John Morris, you could actually jump down below and attach your whip to the ceiling and find yourself an extra life. But it's actually really difficult to get back with John. And this part can be pretty dangerous as well. You can actually get crushed by these pistons. And it actually happened to me a couple times in my practice runs. So let's hope that doesn't happen here. This part right there is probably the trickiest. So I try to just jump up as quickly as possible. And this is actually one of those sections that if we wanted to, we could just grind out on gems to try to get, you know, our special sub-weapon back. The Medusa heads here are pretty slow. So you just want to take your time with those guys. Just, you know, take your time in general when there are rooms with Medusa heads. And either just avoid them like that, or just wait until, you know, they line up with your attacks, and then just attack them. A lot of people freak out when they see Medusa heads, but in reality, they're not that difficult to deal with. At least, I mean, especially right now, where the Medusa heads aren't moving very quickly. It's when the Medusa heads are moving really fast that I think they're the most problematic. And I didn't really want that axe, but it doesn't really matter, to be honest with you. So what I can do is, if I really wanted to, just come up and down, up and down, up and down, and just grind out on a lot of gems and whatnot. And we're just going to jump straight up, attack this guy like that, walk over like this, and we don't really need that because that's just an axe. Unfortunately, this grind could take a while because we just don't have that many gems. We're only getting 3 gems at a time, so it's pretty inconvenient, actually, to be honest with you. Oh, look at that! I spoke too soon. I spoke way too soon, but I'll take it. Alright, so this part is pretty tricky as well. Probably one of the trickier parts in the game on expert mode, because you have a bunch of these guys that constantly come out. But this is a good time to actually use my special sub-weapon since I have it. And I'm going to wait until these guys get somewhat close and then use it. Just like that. Actually, I'm going to grab that gem too. Alright, so mini boss fight here. So this guy has a few different attacks. They're pretty easy to, you know, they're telegraphed pretty well, to be honest with you. When he just lunges back like that, he's going to do a forward attack, which you can just stand right underneath. It doesn't do anything. It just goes right over your head. When he does his lightning attack, he charges up. And you want to just kind of sit back when he does his sort of spinning tentacle kind of whatever attack. And that's pretty much it. So, and this part's really dangerous. For some odd reason, I've been having trouble with this part lately. When back in the day, it was one of the easiest parts for me. I don't know what's going on. Maybe I'm a little more stressed out. Maybe my thumb configuration is a little bit different than it used to be. I do notice that when I play this game, and a lot of Genesis games in particular, using the Genesis 6-button pad, like, I'm very hard on the controller. Like, I'm pressing, like, the down button really, really hard when I play this game. That's probably unnecessary. And it seems like a habit I've just gotten into over time, and I don't really know how I've gotten into that habit. What we're going to do here is just kind of wait for bats to come, and then try to attack. Ooh, we took a hit. That's a shame. That's okay. We've got our axe now, and we have to be really careful here not to jump in place at the wrong time. That was really close, actually. Because if we do, we actually fall to our death. And what I'm going to do is actually just use this alternate attack, or not. Sort of snipe these guys from a distance. Because again, my big goal is to not die. I want as many lives as... I mean, dying a couple times is fine. We've got 6 lives now, so we've got the room. You know, we've got the buffer, basically. But I'd rather not die if I can avoid it, because, you know, some things can go pretty wrong on this run. And I want the extra lives as a backup, basically. Plus a 1 credit clear wouldn't hurt either. You know, I don't aim for perfection on these videos, but if I can get a really good run, then great. So this guy is actually a pretty goofy boss fight, but I like him a lot. And unfortunately, ooh, we didn't take a hit. I got lucky there. So we can actually just jump up and avoid some of his attacks. Same with this attack right here, just jump up like that. You can actually take this boss fight relatively slow with Eric if you want to. And we can just go straight through him like that if you wanted to. I didn't really need to, but the option's there. It's one of the cool things that's playing with Eric is that he's got a lot of flexibility. And attacks like, ooh, I was gonna say attacks like this where he runs across the ground. You can just do a super jump with Eric to get over him. Like this. Oops, okay. So every few hits, the boss basically gets, you know, he gets stunned for a quick minute. And, you know, he shifts into a different pattern. And if he's in the middle of an attack, when that happens, his attack will get interrupted. And that's actually what's been happening a lot in this fight. Which doesn't usually happen with me when I play with John. I have a very specific rhythm with John. But with Eric, it's a different story altogether. And let's just go ahead and grab that. And what's kind of fun in this game, you do this in a lot of Castlevania games, is once the music kicks in, it freezes you in place. And so you can do some goofy things like super jump off the screen with Eric and make him disappear. Or get him into, you know, funny poses. Alright, so this is a pretty interesting stage. It's actually pretty difficult, to be honest with you, to go through without taking a lot of damage. And you'll notice that I've been skipping the holy water completely. I just don't find it all that useful in this game compared to the axe and boomerang. So, no holy water in this playthrough unless, you know, unless I grab it by accident. So let's super jump up here, and then just jump over this guy. Just like that. And there we go. So this is the good thing about having the axe. I generally prefer to have the boomerang, but the axe is a very, very good weapon in this game. It's a huge weapon with a very big hitbox. So yeah, it's just fantastic. Alright, so we got red skeletons here. If you were trying to play for score, or if you're trying to pad out your score, you can actually just grind out on these skeletons over and over. They constantly give you points. I don't think you actually get points. Sorry, let me reverse that. I don't think you get extra lives from points in this game, whereas in other Castlevania games you do. So the point of grinding out on them is a little moot in this game, to be honest with you. And these guys here, I definitely like to take them out with my boomerang if I can. Very dangerous enemies if you try to take them out with just your whip or your spear. Now, I've also found their hitboxes are kind of weird. Like, there have been times where I didn't actually, you know, physically get hit. Like, it didn't look like I got hit, but I got hit in the game. The game thought I got hit, even though it didn't actually touch me. So, especially when you've got your special sub-weapon here and your upgraded whip or spear, you really don't want to mess with those guys up close. You want to just, you know, just get rid of them as quickly as possible from a distance. And these guys are a perfect demonstration of, you know, ducking and attacking with Eric as opposed to standing and attacking. You can do the same amount of damage, just, you know, maybe about twice as fast. So if we can get this guy up close to us, see, just like that, you can get into a faster rhythm. And unfortunately, we took a hit. This guy is a major pain to deal with. He's really easiest to deal with when you've got your special sub-weapon, but unfortunately, I didn't have that. I had the upgraded spear, but I didn't get my special sub-weapon. So what we're going to do is inch our way forward. If we do that, we only wake up one of these bone pillars, and we want to do that to trigger these ghosts first. Otherwise, the ghosts sort of gang up on you, and it's very difficult to deal with them and the bone pillars at the same time. Alright, come on. And we're going to do it again this way. And actually, let's go ahead and just use our sub-weapon now. Just like that. I'm going to get close like this and just duck and attack. And I mistimed it. That's okay. As long as we get past this screen, we should get to a checkpoint. Yeah, this is the checkpoint. Now, unfortunately, we got here with very little health. So this is kind of a shame. And if I wanted to, I could try to attack these guys from down below. But this is one of those sections where you have to take this section with Eric. If we went to the right here, this is the section you have to go to with John. And unfortunately, we don't have John. So what I'm thinking about doing is actually trying to do this section over and over again and grinding out and getting gems. And maybe getting enough gems to get to the top of the screen. Which... or I'm sorry, getting enough gems to upgrade our weapon. I don't think we actually have to have full health. I feel like the requirement is you just have to not take a hit for a certain period of time while collecting a certain amount of gems. This is really something I should have looked into. I mean, this is like my 4th playthrough of this game, and I still don't know that mechanic, how it works exactly. And I have a tendency of doing that with a lot of my videos where I play the games a lot, but I don't look into the technicalities through like a walkthrough or anything like that. A lot of times what I do is if I'm really comfortable with the game like this, I just keep playing it, and I just sort of connect the dots as I play the game over and over again. Because it's really not that big of a deal, you know, knowing specific mechanics like that, you know, to a T. But it definitely helps when I'm trying to explain how things work in a Let's Play, so I'll have to get better about that. So we're just going to go ahead and keep doing this. One of the nice things about Bloodlines is that there's no pressure from a timer. You have no time in this game. So you can just, you know, sit in the levels as much as you want, and you are fine. Now, one reason I want to do this way is that this section is actually one of the more dangerous sections in the game. And there we go, we got our special sub-weapon. And we're going to do this actually a couple more times just to get some more gems. Because, again, you know, using this sub-weapon, it uses up, like, 7 or 8 different gems. And, so that sucks up your ammo pretty quickly. So, like, right now, we can only use it about 5 times. And when you get too low to use it again, you lose it. And in order to get it back, you've got to have, I believe you got to have enough gems, and you have to get whatever sub-weapon it reverted you back to. Okay, so this should be fine. Let's go ahead and just use it, and then jump up like that. Nice, very nice. And I'm going to come this way, actually. I'm going to go ahead and use it again, and then jump up, just like so. And I'm going to go ahead and use it again. Bam, just like that. Those guys are actually really, really dangerous. And let's try to keep this, actually. This can be a tricky part to get through without taking a hit. I'm going to wait until these guys get close to me, then I'm going to use my sub-weapon. Just like that. And there's a mirror. The mirror clears out all the enemies on the screen, which is nice. And we can use this at least once more. Bam, just like that. And it looks like we've got one more use. Great. Okay, so I think we've actually hit the checkpoint. And for this part, I just keep walking straight down like this. I just ignore the bone pillars. And my goal is just to get through this as quickly as possible. Just like that. Oops, not like that. I went a little too far. A little too far. And there we go. Awesome. This should be a boss fight. And see, we picked up a boomerang again, and that gave us our special sub-weapon back. And when he jumps over it like that, he always does this long-range attack, so you've got to watch out for that. Whew. Yeah, see, that's actually kind of intense, because, you know, we're on pretty much no health right now. But this section actually isn't too bad if you're just playing normally, you know. So these guys you just want to attack, you know, just normally, kind of like this. It's best to actually do your normal attack with Eric, and then you've got these little goofy guys that sort of, like, drive at you like this. And you just attack him once, and then once, and then once, just like that. This guy just shoots a gun. You just want to get right in front of him and just attack him like this. And this is our mini boss fight. He has a tendency of shooting directly at you sometimes. What we're going to do is just attack him when he's vulnerable like this. It's basically just a pillar you have to attack. Now, as long as we can get past this, we should be fine, because this leads right to the main boss fight. So one of the differences between normal and expert is on normal, this guy only shoots out 2 projectiles, or I should say 2 bubbles at a time, whereas right now he's shooting out 3. There we go, awesome. Alright, good deal. We're not going to beat this boss without taking a hit, I know that much. But, hey, at least we got to the checkpoint, so all that stuff is behind us now. And let's go ahead and try to... I think there's an axe here we can probably pick up. There we go, we'll go ahead and get the axe, although we don't really have any hearts. Or... we're playing Bloodlines, Austin. Bloodlines, it's gems, not hearts. And, yeah, no wall meat or anything here, which is kind of a shame. Like, man, they give you lots of meat, in other parts of the game, but not this part, unfortunately. Oh, I had a feeling she was going to do something like that. Yeah, this boss could be a little erratic as well. I wasn't expecting her to just dive bomb me like that, but it does happen, so you've got to watch out for that. This can actually be one of the trickier bosses in the game when you die, because, you know, you're not really... You don't have a whole lot of ammo, you don't have a whole lot of sub-weapons to use at this point. My spear is powered up, but that's pretty much it. Unfortunately, it's not in its super form, which was definitely the way to go for this boss. I was doing a lot more damage, a lot faster. But we still have 5 lives left, and guess what? We're actually in the last stretch of the game. So again, Bloodlines is not a super long Castlevania game when it comes to like the amount of stages. But it does have a lot of content. You know, you got a ton of different boss fights, you got a lot of different scenes you go to, lots of different things to look at, which is really cool. And let's see if we can attack it from up here. Unfortunately, Eric doesn't have the reach when it's all the way at the top of the screen like that. Normally, it's hovering a little bit below the top of the screen. But when it's dropping these eggs, you can't attack it with Eric. You could probably super jump, but it's not worth it, because I think you'll go up, you'll hit the boss, and then I think it'll hit you. Pretty much guaranteed, so it's probably not worth trying. I haven't tried it, but that's my guess as to what happens. So stage 6 has a bunch of different gimmicks to it that give a lot of players trouble. For me, it's actually not too bad. I'll try to explain what I do on these sections. I know I've explained it before in previous playthroughs, but my explanations are always all over the place in these videos, so hopefully I can explain it well again. So the big thing here is you've got birds and Medusa heads, and the Medusa heads on this part actually shoot these fireballs at you. You need to attack those fireballs. You can't jump over them. You just wait and attack the fireballs, just like that. So just take your time on this part. It's pretty easy to deal with, actually. And then the bridge busts apart like that, and you're stuck in Dracula's castle. So this is the part that gives a lot of people trouble. What I do here is I jump at the edge of the bottommost platforms, or any platform, really. So let's go ahead and get that. So we'll go ahead and super jump our way up here. So I get into a rhythm where I basically just jump at the edge of any platform I see. And that's an extra life I always have a problem with getting. And just jump at the edge, wait, get to the edge, destroy the guy, jump at the edge, just like that. And I wait for the Medusa heads, and I try to attack them. So notice how I'm getting towards the edge of every platform. And I'm just jumping straight forward. Not a straight up jump, we're jumping straight forward, full momentum. And that's how you can get through that section pretty easily and pretty consistently. Now this section is troublesome as well because it actually reverses your controls. So if you want to duck, you have to press up, not down. And also you've got these balls you have to worry about, which are quite numerous on expert mode, unfortunately. And this is actually probably one of the trickiest parts in the game for me to get through without taking damage. And look at that! That is a great thing right there. We just got our upgraded sub-weapon, which we would have been able to get anyway, because, again, this is one of those levels where you can just go up and down or back and forth between screens to upgrade your gems and your whip, you know, without being stopped. But still, I'd rather have it earlier, you know, sooner than later. But we're still going to have to grind out for gems for the boss rush that's coming up. Unfortunately, there's no more wall meat. So no wall meat. We're pretty much wall meat-less for the rest of the playthrough. So alright, this is it. This is the lead up to our boss rush. We have to fight 3 of the main bosses again. Fortunately, they don't have as much health as they did the first time around. And then after that, we have to fight Death. Now, if you're playing on easy or normal, Death would actually drop some wall meat. But we're not going to have that luxury on expert mode, unfortunately. So, and then after this, we'll be taken to Elizabeth Bartley, who is the Countess that they talk about in the intro. And she's basically out to revive Dracula again for the umpteenth time. And that's actually sort of a mini boss rush as well, because you have to fight Medusa, which is a pretty cool Medusa fight. It's very patternistic, like it's very easy to follow the pattern and just not take a hit. But it is fun. It is cool. And then you have to fight Elizabeth herself, which is kind of annoying, to be honest. It's probably the weakest boss fight in the game, because it just takes a long time, and you have to be pretty much 100% accurate with it. And we're going to go ahead and just do this again. I'm going to really take advantage of using my special sub-weapon on these bosses, because it just annihilates them. And again, it uses up about 8 gems, I think, every time we use it. So if I can get close to maxed out, that would be fantastic. While we listen to this awesome, awesome music. Bloodlines has a great, great soundtrack, and this final stage theme is perfectly fitting for the game. Something else to keep in mind, when you're going up these stairs, you have to press up. If you don't press up, you will fall off them. I actually tested that in a practice run. Going up anyway, you have to hold up. So if I don't press up right here, I walk off the edge and I die. Going down is a different story. If you just hold left or right as you go down, you're fine. But when you're at the bottom of a staircase, you have to hold up. Otherwise you'll fall off and die. You can also jump onto staircases in this game by holding up as you land on them. Alright, so this is the Death Boss Rush. So he basically throws out a bunch of cards, you have to pick them with your weapon. 3 of them are sort of like traps like this. All you have to do is just walk left or right. Make sure you're towards the center of the screen when they happen. Otherwise, you know, if you get into a corner, they're going to hit you. So the idea there is just to stay out of a corner. And just like that. So we got 3 of them out of the way, that's good. So now we just have to go to our 3 boss fights. And I believe this is the water boss fight, which is going to be even easier than it was before, because look at all that damage I just did. Just like that. And if you want to get some extra points as this guy dies, you can try to destroy his column. Now that guy is actually pretty risky if you've got your special sub-weapon like we do, because, you know, he'll like smash the ceiling and all these sorts of rocks and debris will fall down, and they can be difficult to avoid. On expert mode, the pattern has a tendency of being quite dense. Basically just trying to do this guy without using my sub-weapon if I can. That way I can save the sub-weapon for death. Because I've got half my health. I'm not super comfortable with the death fight. He kind of goes all over the place. And he throws out these sickles that can be very difficult to avoid. And so if I can, when I get into the death fight, is just use my special sub-weapon. You know, the screen clearing attack. Which will do a lot of damage. Just like that, 1, 2, and then bam, just like that. And he's gonna go down, and then back up, and then he's gonna bounce around. Like this, and that's it. Actually, if I didn't kill him right there with that attack, it's possible I would have slammed right into him. Notice how, like, this tower we're on is constantly rotating around. You're rotating with it. Let's go ahead and just use that right off the bat. And again. And we lost our sub-weapons, but that's okay. This is sort of a throwback to Castlevania 4. I love the throwbacks to Castlevania 4 in this game, because Castlevania 4, among more experienced video game players, is kind of gotten a negative stigma attached to it in some crowds these days, you know, due to it being quote-unquote too easy and things like that, and kind of overlooking a lot of the other things it does really well. And as a fan of that game, I love seeing the throwbacks to it. You know, Konami was fully acknowledging that game, basically, in this, which was awesome. So, from the varying attack directions, you know, like this, sort of harkening back to Castlevania 4's 8-way whipping, to, you know, various boss fights and whatnot. It's pretty cool. I mean, even the theme of Simon is the last theme of the game leading up to Dracula, so, I mean, that should tell you there enough that, you know, I think they had respect for their own game, but a lot of fans these days, for some reason, like to nitpick about it. Which always saddens me. Alright, so this Medusa shoots out this fire right here. You just want to jump through, like, the first or second one, duck that one, and then jump over this tail, just like that. And then just smack her in the face over and over. And then just rinse and repeat. It's not a very complex boss fight, but there are different patterns you have to learn, which will catch you off guard at first. But once you learn them, pretty easy boss fight. And Elizabeth is actually a pretty easy boss fight as well. There we go. But you just have to be very, very focused. So she's going to appear on one side or the other. Apparently, according to a comment on my previous Let's Play, she'll appear on the side that's farthest away from you. Although I'm not sure if I'm comfortable with doing that, because you don't have enough time to jump in and attack her. She shoots out this projectile that can't be destroyed. And I'm dead. Oh, look at that! We just figured out a new strategy with Eric. So you can actually super jump through them, you'll be safe, but then, you know, once the bubbles get towards the center of the screen, she spawns in extra enemies and whatnot. Let's see if we can do this without dying. Yeah, it looks like it works. I'm getting towards the left-hand side of the screen. And sure enough, she's spawning at the right-hand side the whole time. So maybe it's a little more useful than I thought. My big concern was that you just don't have a whole lot of time to get over to her before she shoots the projectile. Very, very nice. Thank you, fellow, who suggested that tip in my previous Let's Play. That actually helps out quite a bit. So we're going to sit towards the left-hand side of the screen and just, you know, bait her over to the right. That is actually very, very good to know. Look at this. Excellent. So that is a fantastic tip for people that are having trouble with this boss fight. Sit to the side you're most comfortable with, and then she'll go to the opposite side, guaranteed. And that's one of the great things about a lot of these classic games, is that a lot of patterns will seem kind of cryptic at first, and they'll feel like they're out of control. But in a lot of cases, there is some subtle rhythm and rhyme to it. So in this case, you just, you know, whatever side of the screen you're on, she goes to the opposite side. And if you sit dead center, it seems like she's just going to go to, you know, almost any side, or it's going to feel like that. Alright, this is the last cycle. We have 6 hits. Awesome. Alright, on to the final stretch. Unfortunately, I don't have any health. So I feel like I should probably just kill myself, but we'll go ahead and try it. We've got plenty of lives to burn. So, and what I'm going to do is not really bother grinding out for my special sub-weapon, although it would help me. It would definitely help my chances for sure. But it's quite unlikely I'll end up, you know, defeating Dracula without taking a hit. I don't think I've ever defeated Dracula without taking a hit, come to think of it. You know what? Screw it. Why not? Let's just... It's really not worth it, but... because when I die, we're gonna have to do it again anyway. Well, we don't really have to do it again. I mean, I could probably do the fight without grinding out, but, yeah, let's just do the fight. So the big thing with Dracula here is you want to just sort of attack and sort of like attack as you go down. So attack at the top of your jump like this, because he'll shoot his fireballs upwards. And then you'll also attack the fireballs at the same time on the way down. This is very similar to a lot of other Dracula boss fights, including Dracula X Rondo of Blood. Yeah, the expert mode boss fight's actually not that hard compared to the normal mode boss fight, surprisingly. And he basically turns into this little wraith, which just bounces all over the place. Oh, look at that! He just slammed right into me. Oh well, not a big deal. So we should be fine from this point on, but we'll go ahead and just grind out and get leveled up and whatnot. Leveled up. I feel like I'm playing Hide Light again. We'll just grind out. We'll get our special sub-weapon back. So this will take a while, but it'll make the Dracula boss fight go a little bit easier. And if I can, it'll make the second form a good bit easier as well, because I'll have that screen-clearing attack. Actually, the fastest way to do this is just grabbing this blue gem over and over again, because it's 5 each time. Bam, just like that. But yeah, this is a great trick. Again, you can do this in Castlevania 3, you can do it in Castlevania 1, Bloodlines, and I'm sure there are other Castlevania games you can do this in as well. So, you know, if you want to get upgraded before a boss fight, you know, just do this. Just walk up and down the stairs. It's very common on Dracula boss fights in particular. So, hell, I think you can even do it in, God, I think you can do it in the X68000 Dracula as well. Also known as Castlevania Chronicles here in North America. We actually did a series of Let's Plays on that. I did the original mode last year, so if you guys are interested in checking that out, just look for my Castlevania playlist on my channel here. And you can check that out. That was a pretty good run, too. So we're just going to keep doing this until we get our upgraded spear. Yeah, so it really seems like it's a certain amount of gems you have to get without taking a hit, and then it will upgrade you eventually. And what that number is, I'm not sure. And I think, like, if you get a gem that's 5, it still counts for 1. Like 1 towards your being upgraded. That's what it feels like. So it's not entirely just based around how many gems you have, but how many different gems you collect total, it seems like. We're at 96, we still haven't gotten it. The game's like, yeah, we don't want to give it to you now. There we go. So I'm curious what the actual number is. If it's like 20, or if it's, you know, maybe 30. And we're basically just going to do the exact same thing. Save our sub-weapon for the second form if we can. Assuming we don't take a hit here. We didn't take a hit the first time, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, 4 hits. I think we might have taken like 3 hits the first time, maybe even less. Bam, look at that. We did a whole lot more damage. So the upgrade was worth it. And to make sure I'm like the right spacing away, I like to just sort of attack and sort of see where my attack's going to go. And that's how I can basically judge like how close I am to Dracula, or how much closer I need to be, or if I'm too far away, or maybe I'm too close and it's going too far. You want to be just the right distance. If you're too close, you're not going to hit both the fireball and Dracula. Bam, look at that. Awesome stuff. Alright, so this fight is a little tricky. He's got 3 different forms here. This first one, he'll basically shoot some projectiles out down on the ground that you can actually duck under, kind of like this. You kind of want to just get back and then jump and attack as he gets close, or dives in. Once he turns red, he does the same thing, but with a swooping fire attack towards the bottom of the screen. Actually, a pretty easy final form, to be honest with you, once you figure it out. But it's a cool background. Always like these cool backgrounds. And now he's basically going to spit out a bunch of bones when you attack him. Tons of slowdown. And if you duck down like this, a lot of times what happens is he does a super jump. Very much like in the very first Castlevania, if you duck in front of Dracula's second form, he'll do a super jump over your head. And it seems like they carried that over into this fight. And look at that! Thanks to our special sub-weapon, we ended up doing that whole fight without taking a single hit. So we weren't able to do that on the first go-around, but at least we were able to do it on the second. I should have actually saved the sub-weapon until, get into the air. There you go, Eric. Good job. You stand on your head. And that is Castlevania Bloodlines Expert Mode. And you get a little bit extra to the ending as well. This is how you get the true ending in the game, by completing the game on Expert Mode. Now, the endings are still very, very short, unfortunately. That's probably my biggest issue with Castlevania Bloodlines, is the endings are just not very fleshed out. Which is kind of a shame. You go through all that trouble and it's just, you know, it's about 10 or 15 seconds of, you know, text, and that is about it. So this is the extra part right here that you'd get on Expert Mode that you don't get on normal mode, so. And it looks like Eric there gets rid of his spear. It is never to be seen again. Does Eric appear in other Castlevania games? Like normal Castlevania games? I'm trying to think. Like, I don't think he I don't think he comes back. I don't think John comes back either, to be honest with you. Which kind of makes sense, because, like, the timeline this game takes place in, it's like... God, I forget when it was. Was it, like, the late 1800s, or was it, like, the early 1900s? I don't remember. But, yeah, Castlevania Bloodlines Expert Mode. Really fantastic game. I always have to gloat about this game a little bit once we finish it on these playthroughs here on my channel. But I ended up actually learning a couple things in this playthrough myself, which was kind of cool. I wasn't expecting. That's always nice. And hopefully you guys learned something that you didn't know. And for those of you guys that watched my previous Let's Plays of this game, you know, now you've gotten to see pretty much every route with both characters. So, you know, that is one of the nice things about Bloodlines, is it's got sort of inherent replay value just baked into the game, because you've got two different characters that play quite differently. And then they have specific routes that they have to take that the other character can't take. And so it's fun. I'm glad I finally done a full run on YouTube with just Eric on Expert Mode. And yeah, good stuff. So yeah, it basically just goes through all the enemies. It tells you all the boss names and whatnot, and then it pretty much just wraps itself up. It's not a bad ending overall. I just wish, like, the main parts of the ending pre-credits was a little bit more involved, but it's okay. I do like the credits. I kind of wish more Castlevania games had credits like this. Actually, what am I talking about? Quite a few Castlevania games did have credits kind of like this. You know, Castlevania 3, Super Castlevania 4, Bloodlines. But yeah, Castlevania Bloodlines is a great game. If you've never played it before, I do highly recommend it, especially if you're a fan of Castlevania games. It's one of the better games in the series from the old linear days, if you ask me. I don't go back to it as often as other Castlevania games, though, because I don't find it to be as challenging overall. Expert Mode is definitely a challenge, but it's not as much of a challenge as, say, Castlevania 3's Second Loop, or, you know, trying to do more of a pacifist kind of, you know, Castlevania 1 run. Congratulations, you're a master of the Vampire Killer, even though I wasn't actually using the Vampire Killer. But it's still a great game. I think it's a fantastic game, especially for more Castlevania casuals, because it does have an easy mode, it does have a normal mode, it's, wait, it does have an easy mode, right? Let me check this real quick. I don't want to be talking out of my rear here, so... I thought I had an easy mode. Yeah, it does have an easy mode. Okay. I was gonna say... Okay. Ooh, whew. But yeah, it's got an easy mode, it's got a normal mode. Its normal mode's not that bad compared to other Castlevania games, but it's just a really good ride. Like, it's got great graphics, great music. It's very enjoyable, you know, lots of variety in the boss fights and the locations you go to and the enemy types you have to destroy and whatnot. It's just a very memorable Castlevania game. It's not the most difficult in the series, which is one reason I don't go back to it as often these days, but I love revisiting it for you guys on my channel here, because it's just a fantastic game. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. I don't really have anything else to talk about. I hope you guys enjoyed this playthrough, and if you're brand new to my channel, definitely consider subscribing. I've got a lot of Let's Plays on this channel, and many, many more to come. Also, a big thumbs up or even a thumbs down helps my videos greatly, so anybody out there watching, feel free to do that. If you're already subbed to my channel, thank you for your continued support. Hope you guys continue to enjoy these videos, and until the next one, take it easy.